Gentlemen, let's broaden our minds.
The truth shall set you free.
You can't handle the truth.
We came, we saw, we kicked its ass.
That's not how the Force works. Oh, really? You're cold?
I'm gonna make him an offer again.
I'd buy that for $1.
Oh, I'm sorry. Did I break your concentration?
Hasta la vista, baby.
I don't have friends. I got family.
Surely you can't be serious.
I am serious. And don't call me Shirley.
I can do this all day.
Yeah, I know.
Hello and welcome to the Creative Control Movie Podcast. I'm your host, Kenan, and thank you for joining us for episode 25. On this week's episode, we're going to be discussing James Bond. So we are going to be going into spoilers for No Time to Die. So if you haven't seen that movie yet, you might want to download this episode, save it for later, and come back until you do so. If you've seen the movie or you're not worried about spoilers, stick around as we go into it. So we're going to be talking about James Bond and the future of James Bond and what we would do next with the character. So joining me on today's show are series regulars. We have Lee, Sacha, and Neil. And coming back from a little bit of an absence, we have Greg. How are you doing, gentlemen?
Doing well. How are you?
Very well, thank you.
Good stuff. Greg, what have you been up to? Because you've been absent a little while. You've been mega busy. What have you been up to?
I've been working as a production manager on a theatre show that called The Haunting of Hill House. So just lots of crazy effects to do, sound effects and weird things that move and shit that goes bump in the night. So I've just been really busy with that. But the show is finished for now, so I get to relax and enjoy myself again. So
fantastic. And Neil, what have you been up to?
Decorating my house.
How's that going?
It's not as fun as it might seem on Instagram.
Sacha, you're getting prepared to go on a holiday, aren't you?
Yeah, going to the States.
A well-deserved break, well-deserved. And Lee, what have you been up to?
Pretty boring, to be fair. Just working. I'm in security, so could build up to Christmas now. It's everyone wants alarms and cameras and that kind of thing. So yeah, work's been so busy at the moment.
Right.
So I've literally just managed to sit down now and do this.
Maybe something to pimp at the end of the show. So again, spoiler warning: No Time to Die. We see the end of the Daniel Craig James Bond franchise. I can't see him coming back. So if he's pretty much gone via a huge explosion via missiles at the end. If he does come back, that's going to be some cheap ass trick and movie to try and switch that around. So,
do you think that was his choice?
Yeah,
Daniel Craig.
Yeah, I think I'm pretty sure that I think he thought the last one was the last one. I don't think he was planning on coming back. I think they persuaded him because I don't think really Spectre really kind of lit the world on fire. It didn't do as well as it thought, and they're like, don't want to kind of go out on that dampener. And I think once kind of the reviews came in, the feedback, he didn't perform as well as the others. He's probably thinking Skyfall was received really well, maybe we need to go out with a bigger bang. And I think they just persuaded him to come back for one more. They felt there's more of his story to tell, kind of wrap up that storyline, because the main thing about Daniel Craig's James Bond is there's a storyline going from Casino Royale all the way to the end, which you don't normally get in those movies. You get some hints through it, but this is like a very much a continuation of the whole story. So yeah, I think maybe one of the conditions of it coming back was like, can we do this? Because we haven't seen Bond die on screen before. And it's like it's going to stop people asking the questions. I'm totally out. That's it. I'm done.
Yeah.
Now, so obviously we're going to talk about James Bond and what next. And so first of all, before I touch on reboots, does anybody see the franchise continuing in the fashion it is now with the current existing cast and just bringing in a new 007? Has anybody contemplated that, or has everyone thought fresh reboot?
I thought about it for maybe like 45 seconds. I thought, having I can't remember what her character's name was, but the new 007, I think is it Lashana Lynch? Yeah. Her, like I mean, I personally would watch like a spy film franchise with her as the lead, but
because Nomi, her character,
I would watch a film with her in as the lead, but I'd watch a film, not a film franchise.
Mm-hmm.
But to be honest, I really and truly, I think, how can I put it? I think you can't really continue with this iteration of the character, or like this iteration of the cast, the way the cast is. It's very kind of like in its own sphere, if that makes sense.
So you don't see just like a new agent coming in and them all carrying on in their previous roles?
No.
Anybody else contemplate keeping the original cast, whether Lashana Lynch continued in that role and we had her as a main female, or she was just another agent and we had a new character come in? Obviously, it wouldn't be a James Bond, but does it need to be James Bond, or is it just 007?
I mean, I think it's a shame that they went that way, just because I think that it would have been nice for this cast. I think that Ray Fiennes is an excellent M. Obviously, Judi Dench is absolutely excellent. I like the Moneypenny, I like the Q, I like all that. So it's a shame that they have very much killed off Bond. And as you said, that if you were to bring him back from the dead as such, it would be a little bit cheapened as such. So yeah, I think it's a shame, and I think they have kind of forced themselves into a corner. They have to reboot now, but I don't really care about seeing a younger Bond or a new Bond. It wouldn't make sense. It would cheapen the creative control of the beginning of Casino Royale and stuff, of him earning his stripes, if they then went and had a very younger version already killing people. So I think they've kind of painted themselves into a corner, and I think it's a crying shame, basically. So,
Did you see a body though?
You didn't, and so
we didn't.
I saw the barbecue.
There's no body.
He was wrapped in.
And that's where you get the next film, and it starts off as the rockets are coming, and we get it from a different angle, and he survives. But that's never going to happen.
Down into a submarine. And
The fire blows
but
up
that's
and
as
gets
far
blown
as-
into the sea.
Yeah, but that's as far as how I've thought about it. I've thought about it two ways, okay, if you were to keep the current cast. Exactly as I described, he miraculously, from a different angle, whoever they get to direct and write, well, it'll probably be one of their usual writers, to come up with a miraculous way. Maybe he gets some scarring, needs plastic surgery, and there we go. There's the new Bond. They're not gonna do
That's
that.
pretty much how they started with the
I know
original
everyone's
Night Rider.
groaning, but I'm throwing everything and the kitchen sink here if they were to keep the cast. But most evidently, I would say you either do a prequel to Skyfall or a sequel to Skyfall, depending on your love for Judi Dench. Either way, and then finally give us a James Bond film with Daniel Craig, because you get the first two films where he isn't 007 yet. He's still very much earning his stripes at the very beginning, pre 007 career. Then you've got Skyfall, where he retires. Well, not retires, but he's kind of gone in the first 10 minutes of the movie, and then is reinstated, but he's supposed to be this great agent who we've never seen actually enjoy his day job as a 00. Then we get to Spectre, where realistically, even though he does all those James Bond things, it's a story about him falling in love with Madeline. And then it brings us to No Time to Die, where he's dealing with heartache and heart loss. You know what I mean? He doesn't shag a girl. He doesn't do most of the things, your stereotypical Bond film. He hasn't done... But when people ask who's your favourite 007, I like Craig because he's a very different James Bond, and I've enjoyed a few of his movies. However, I can't compare him to any other James Bond because he's never played the role. We've
never seen prime Bond from him, have we?
Yeah, we've never seen Bond in his prime doing a mission, enjoying himself.
He's gone from newbie to retired, and we kind of missed
exactly from
missed
A to Z.
peak.
So if they were to do that and have it be part of this, it would have to be Daniel Craig.
It would.
It can't be. It can't be anyone else. And it would. You'd have to pick either before or after, depending on your, whether you want Judi Dench back. Which I wouldn't mind, but do you know what I mean? Like, she's getting on a bit. She'd have to look how she did pre Skyfall. You know, it's probably easier to go post that. But I mean, you know, I know Craig's out. I know that the producers haven't. Well, they say they haven't thought about the next Bond, and they said that last time as well, and the time before
They will after this
that. She's made herself. Barbara Broccoli has made herself perfectly clear that she hasn't thought about Bond, and that Craig is her Bond, even now, kind of thing. It's something that they're going to look at next year to think of the bigger picture with the merger with Amazon. So, you know, what does Amazon want? Do they want a new Bond, or do they want to throw all the money on a safe bet? There's loads of factors here. One thing is for sure, I think Craig is done. I think everyone can agree with that. He's reiterate this all the time. But then so was Connery, and he never said never again. And it all depends on circumstances and stuff like that. And so did Moore. You got to understand, Roger Moore quit like 3 times and kept, you know, something always drew him back in. So it's not a pattern we've never seen before with the James Bond. But we'll have to see. I very much doubt it will be Daniel Craig, and I think it will be a reboot, because that was a very bold way to end it. To do what I've suggested would go back on that, I think. But then again,
I agree. Yeah. And I think that would just take something away from it completely. So, you know, similar like how what they do with Black Widow, like you and Marvel, was like, she's gone, and now you're kind of bringing her back and going through that whole process again. It cheapens that kind of movie, and it's just, I don't think it's something that we want to see. I personally don't. Yeah. Lee, what's your thoughts? Can you continue with this, or are you just like, nah, time for a change?
Me? Right, yeah. No, I think it's, time for a change. Yeah, I mean, I did like the cast, but I think without Daniel Craig and Bond and introducing a new character, I just think it'd be missing something. Obviously, because they've built up these characters and Bond's been the focal point of that. So I think it'd always be missing something. And so I do think it does need a change. Did you want my ideas?
Well, so let's kind of talk about that. So I suppose there's really kind of 2 ways that we can go. Maybe there's more, and I haven't thought about it. So one is we do a reboot and we go back to James Bond, like we say, earning his stripes and becoming Bond. Now, Craig was kind of the first one to do that, because all the other Bonds pretty much picked up where the other ones left off. They're Bond, they got their missions, they go off and go. So all those Bonds, we kind of got prime Bonds. So we either got that, or we just say, look, this is our new Bond. He's been around for a few years now. He's going on a mission. Just get on with it. I think that studios like a origin story now to be able to set up franchises. There's not very many where you go into it. And, you know, Spider-Man, for example, is one which they did, you know, with the MCU. It's like, we're not going to get to reteach the origin story again. It's not important. We're going to go with the character. But pretty much every other character in movies, you're going to get that kind of build up to say who they are, why they are, and this is why they're here. So, Lee, do you see yourself doing a reboot from scratch and having a younger Bond earning his stripes, or are you just like, it's Bond, it doesn't matter, we're going straight into it?
Well, I had a couple of ideas. I mean, I would like to see an origin story, but like a timepiece from like back in the 50s, like the original, like, you know, Bond, and you know, his parents died, whether there's circumstances around that, you know, how he went into his training, how he got into the system, and, you know, sort of done an origin. Now, how that's done, I say maybe as a one-off, it would just be, I think I'd just quite like to see that, because I've been a big fan of Bond, you know, over the years. I've loved the films, used to love, I mean, probably not so much now, because Bond has been, you know, there's been so many other characters now, like Bourne and that, that's been sort of maybe based on Bond. So there's a lot of competition out there now. So, but I mean, back in the day, I couldn't wait for a Bond movie to come out. You know, you got the villains were always really cool, and you know, stunts and storylines were
so much of it was practical back in the day as well. You know,
so I would quite like to see like an origin like back in the day.
So would you set Bond in a different time period? Would you have him like modern day, or actually would you set Bond in the 60s or 70s and actually just go right back and just have it a different style?
Sort of for the more like the younger generation, I think Bond does need like a kickstart, and I would probably do more of a modern day origin story and start the franchise again. And I would I would go with a JBU, a James Bond universe, and
Okay.
I would introduce all of like the old characters, like Scaramanga, all the Odd Job. Bring all of these characters, whether they have their own movies or not, I don't know, but create a universe. And the other thing I would do is also introduce more 00 agents. I mean, there's only like over the years, it's only been a couple of mentions of other 00 agents. I mean, GoldenEye is one of my favourite movies, and because Sean Bean came in as 006, and it was really good. I mean, two 00 agents working together on a mission. And it would be cool if there was, say, this 00 Academy that, branched out across the world, and then you introduce these sort of younger versions of those villains. And, I say...
Maybe you could have more cross-agency.
It's an idea, but I think it'd be really cool to say, introduce all the characters that we've seen over all the years and just sort of bring them into this new world. And there's just so much you could do with that.
There's something to be said for kind of maybe taking a little bit from, like, say, Mission Impossible. So if they are cross-agency and they're working with agencies across the world, you can bring other agents in from, different countries and have a little bit of more of him having a support network. Obviously, it's him on the ground. But, what I did like at the end of No Time to Die, was him and Nomi's character. And, that kind of works well, the two of them. It doesn't always have to be him solo. So, obviously, people want to see Bond doing it because that's what Bond does. But then towards the end of the film, Nomi's character, she goes off, she's making sure someone's safe, and then he goes on his, one-man quest. So, I like that idea. That's cool. Greg, what about you? What kind of time period would you set it, and what direction would you take it?
I mean, I'm torn. My problem is that you have to go, well, obviously one of two ways, which is take it to a sort of an origin story. But as much as I like the idea of that being in the 60s and stuff, I think because of the modern Bonds, I think it would just be too much of a change from the modern story. So it would have to be sort of a younger Bond. I like the idea of an academy, but I'm just worried it's going to be too much like the Kingsman and things like this now. So I'd like to see it working with maybe a couple of other 00 agents and earning their stripes. But that's one way. Or I'm like Sacha, I miss the idea of just a modern Bond movie that is like the spirit of the old ones. It's a bit more fun, not sort of camp and sort of too sort of like I don't want it to get to the point where you have terrible CGI surfing on icebergs and invisible cars.
Satellite.
But at the same point, I think there's so much about darkness and angst in the modern ones. It has to be that he spends most of his time not wanting to be an agent or in love or torn. And I'd like a standalone Bond movie to introduce the new Bonds, someone sort of lighter-hearted and more sort of... I suppose they've got to be careful. They're trying to update it so that Bond is a little bit more human, and obviously we can't go back to the sort of happy, slappy days of Sean Connery slapping women.
No, I don't think we can go that
human
far
shields and stuff. So I understand the idea of trying to make it a little bit more sort of woke, but at the same point, I think a bit of fun and promiscuity and the good old sort of
some good old puns. Yeah.
Well, this is it. I mean, I grew up. I love Roger Moore. I mean, he's still one of my favourites and stuff. I think I like different Bonds at different eras, but Roger Moore just made me laugh, and the man's ability to spin a double entendre and.
I think that's it. I think all the Bonds, they like Greg said, I think every Bond. Looking back, when someone says, "Oh, what's your favourite Bond?" It's a bit like when you look at the Jokers. They all sort of did the right thing at the right time, maybe, like through different eras.
I mean, Timothy Dalton was Daniel Craig before Daniel Craig was. He was just a little bit too early for his, it's kind of like the Back to the Future quote, you're not ready for this yet, but your kids are going to love it, because Timothy Dalton was Daniel Craig, who was before Daniel Craig was. But I mean, I think a standalone Bond movie, something, fun and fantastical. It doesn't have to have an underwater or a space lair or something like that, but something a bit more standalone to introduce a new Bond without this overarching sort of angsty story and, sort of Yeah, I'd like Bond to actually be in the agency for a little while rather than spend his whole time not in the agency.
Yeah, absolutely. Because even in Casino Royale, he quit towards the end of the movie. You know, he couldn't even make it through one movie before he quit. So it's just like it's kind of got a little bit ridiculous. But okay, so Neil, what's your take? What's your direction for Bond?
Before starting this podcast, I had a very clear vision of what I wanted, which I will get to. But since you guys have been talking, I really liked something Lee said about, you know, having like a period Bond. And it kind of made me think, you know what? You know, I wouldn't mind seeing would be like a series of Bond films. Maybe like you have roughly say 4 to 5 films. And what you would do is each film is in a different decade. So like we start Bond as like a 20-year-old fresh-faced agent in like at the end of like World War II or like going into like the 1950s. And then we have one in the 60s, one in the 70s, one in the 80s, get to the 90s. And basically what we would do is when we reach the moment in time where Bond is too old to be running around as an agent, have him become M.
Yeah.
And then you just have a film franchise where he's the guy, but he's sending people on missions. So like maybe in his last film where he's an active agent, there's a young upstart who then becomes like the new 007 at the end of the film. And then you have all the rest of the films in present day with that 007.
Okay.
That would. We could have a son called James Bond Jr.
Oh no!
He carries on the mantle.
I swear
the adventures of young James Bond.
Yeah, but no, I did have a proper idea, which was basically that. So it would be that Bond's an agent. Like I don't need his origin story, but there is a bit of time manipulation in it. So Bond's an agent, but he's like a sophomore, so he's not a rookie, but he's not in his prime. He's been Bond. He's been the 007, you know, let's say like between 2 and 5 years. And like we'll have him on a mission with, you know, like, so he's on a mission. He's not the only 00 there. But maybe we have it that because, I mean, the nature of a 00 agent, you're going on all these secret missions. Like, I ain't being funny, but not everybody's going to have the horseshoe up their backside that Bond does. So some people ain't going to make it past the first mission. So maybe he's got a couple of rookies with him. And then where it goes from there is they're on a mission and the mission goes wrong. So maybe like 1 or 2 agents die. The rest of the agents there, they kind of like the younger ones, the ones who are definitely rookies, they kind of take it and feel like it's their fault because of whatever happened. But Bond, who's like, he's been in this situation before, he's like, nah, it's not your fault. You know, sometimes you can do everything right and the mission still goes wrong. So like, it's not your fault. Don't be so hard on yourself. And then we'll jump to like the present day, which would be, you know, maybe, I don't know, again, between maybe 2 to 5 years later. And now Bond is in his prime. So now for like every other film in this run, he'd be in his prime and then slowly getting out of his prime. People start dying off, like agents start dying off, and you know the suspicion is that there's a spy inside of MI5, right? And you know it's like, you know, M's like, right, Bond, you know, we want you to find out what's going on because the only connection all of these agents have is a mission you led. And you know, it'll even have it like maybe a little bit of suspicion falls on Bond or whatever. But you know, as it progresses, it will turn out that of the agents who died in the beginning, one of them doesn't die, and he essentially gets captured by whoever the mission was against. He gets tortured for years. Then he gets released. Well, not gets released, but he eventually escapes. And he's like, he holds a grudge against all the people who were on the mission because of the fact that he's like, you left me behind. Right? And I know that kind of has elements of both GoldenEye and Skyfall in it. But what I want a film that puts Bond against an agent of his caliber. Because, you know, like, throughout all of Daniel Craig's run, he never really got into it with someone who's like, yeah, like he got into it with people who were as smart or smarter than he was. They all had every kind of henchman under the sun. And I'm like, nah, I don't want you having all of that. No, get into a fist fight. Yeah, you're James Bond. Show me you can throw hands. So like, I want that, and I want, because I'm like, to be honest, if James Bond as a character and British spy films as an entity wants to continue, you need to take a page out of, is it Christopher McQuarrie? You need to take a page out of that man's book. Because when he did Mission Impossible Fallout, that man said, look, I don't care how many 00s you got, you ain't got enough.
Yeah.
So, you know, at least have that where you've got rogue agents and you've got people who have changed sides and you've got people who are just flat out for revenge. What would happen if, imagine a bad James Bond. Imagine a villainous James Bond who's like, not, oh, I've got henchmen to do the job. He's like, no. I'm going to do it myself. And I'm going to make sure the job's done.
Okay. Cool. All right. Sacha, what is your take? How would you move Bond forward?
I'd set in space. I'd do it in puppets with cats. And have it be stop motion. And maybe have a CGI villain, just for something different.
You can bring back Kitty Galore as a white furry cat.
Yeah, Bond will be transsexual. He'll change sex halfway through the film, and that's how I do it. It'll go from cat to dog as well, because why not?
Is that not the definition of shaken, not stirred?
Why not? No. What would I do? Honestly, to be honest, I'm with Lee. I take it back to the 50s or the 60s during the Cold War, but done with today's kind of filmmaking standards, kind of thing. You don't want to look like how it did back then. You know how film does back then, and yeah, that's basically what I do. Really, I take it back, set in the Cold War.
Would you have any kind of origin, or you just start him off as Bond, he's in the position and go?
A light origin, kind of like Casino Royale, maybe, but I wouldn't remake Casino Royale, if that makes sense. Yeah. I'd have him on a mission, I'd take the themes off it, have him fall in love, and then that would be about it. There doesn't necessarily have to be a casino, etc. It could just be another Bond mission.
Yeah.
You know? But yeah, I'd introduce all the characters straight away rather than feed them in. I'd have Q for one scene. I'd have Moneypenny already there. I would have Felix Leiter already there. Just like in Dr. No, Felix Leiter was there right at the start, right at the very start. And the actor playing him, he was like the best. He was like the only accurate one from all the Felix Leiters they've ever had in the first film. It was the guy that was in Hawaii Five-0, the original. I've forgotten his name.
Right,
but yeah. But because like Felix has never. But you know what? One thing I liked about Craig's era is that we had consistency of the cast, if that makes sense, in terms of Bond supporting characters, especially Felix Leiter, because there's like about 12 or 13 actors that have played him, and only one actor played him
twice
before, and so I agree with a lot of your guys' ideas that that we'd like to see everyone on the offset kind of thing, but that's about it really. I mean, like, you grow it from the beginning, but obviously they have the rights to Spectre now, so we don't have to dilly dally with Quantum. No, actually it's this. Spectre's there from the get go.
Yeah.
You don't meet Blofeld till later on in the series, and we just go through all these big bosses, if you know what I mean, that work for him, and you hint him like Thanos, if you know what I mean, kind of thing. Like, how, you know, that underlying thing. Maybe, you know, maybe they think the agency's called Octopus because as a hint at the video game version when they couldn't use the word Spectre because the logo's an octopus, you know, but branch it out. Because it's his first mission, maybe he does a mission with 006 and you show them as friends, as comrades. And then later on in the series, rather than it be like, oh, in next film, what happens there, keep the same actor, but later on, film number 5 even, you know what I mean? You show a turn. It doesn't have to be GoldenEye. It's our version of GoldenEye. You know what I mean? But yeah, I like the 50s and 60s settings. I'm not really about trying to make it fit with today's audience at all. I'm very much like Bond is Bond, man. Like, let's go back to those roots and just literally, you know, that is what will make it unique about everything else. While everyone else is following current day trends, Bond has a classiness of it, you know what I mean, of staying traditional, keep it traditional, and the only thing different would be is having it be a period piece. You know, and I'm talking, if you're going to franchise it for like 10 films to have it consistent, some consistency. Sign your actor for that amount of time and keep him in the role for as long as Craig has done, and actually have a plan of like bringing him out consistently. But think about your hierarchy on how you're going to get to Blofeld. And then if you are going to get to Blofeld, think post-Blofeld. If you have more of a story to tell, then tell that story. If you don't, then that should be the cut-off point for the next iteration. But I'm saying 10 films because like I'm greedy, but realistically I'd say 7. I'd say 7 films. 7 films, same as Connery, same as Moore. And that's a healthy amount, man.
So I've kind of looked at it, and you know, if it was me personally, I'd be quite happy to see a new James Bond. You know, the film starts, car chase, action scene, straight into it, then he's on to his next mission. I'm fine with that because that's what I've been used to growing up. You know, just having a Bond and getting on with it. When I look at today's average cinema audience, I don't think that's necessarily going to work. I think a lot of the audience prefer to be spoon-fed, in a sense. I think they prefer to see it all. So I wouldn't follow the books in a sense of, you know, James Bond, they've like converted books and they've made movies based on those. It's completely different. It's new stories, but with the same kind of characters and threads. Okay, so the way that I kind of see it was Bond is going to be around 35. So he's going to be born sort of like between 85 and 90, say.
Good time.
What's that?
I said good times.
Yeah, good times. And so the way I kind of see it is, you know, he loses his parents and he pretty much joins the army straight out of school. And so, you know, we probably would have a young guy playing a very young James Bond from like a teenage point of view. And you're going to see him progress through the ranks. He's going to end up in the Afghanistan or Iraq war leading troops. So you're going to get sort of like time periods through the 90s and 2000s. And what I kind of see as him leading a mission, a covert operation in Afghanistan. And as much as, you know, the population believe it to be the Taliban, they know that there is another agency called Spectre, which is running the show in the background. And the Taliban is a front for that. and they're just trying to use that to manipulate money, weapons, this and the other. So they're going after this this organization. Big blowout, loses loads of team members. He's kind of the last survivor, thinks he's killed off Spectre. Because of that, then he joins like MI6 and starts, coming at that. So what we do is we get to see him become Commander Bond. So to recognize that title, you need about 15 years service to become Commander. So then, by the time he's come out of school, he's going to be in his 30s, 32, 33, whatever it is. He moves into MI6. Basically, then his first mission is going to be basically Spectre has sort of like re-emerged, and he is leading he has to go in undercover to find out X, Y, and Z. And the way I kind of see it is the persons that he lost during that first battle, they end up being your different villains as part of Spectre. So they didn't actually die; they saved him, very much like Winter Soldier-ish. They turn them, they convert them, and like pretty much like GoldenEye. So this one, he's going to pretty much have a relationship with like another colleague there. But we all know that he wasn't the only one to survive. But we only have this one villain for this one piece. It could just be a simple piece of intel. It doesn't need to be a huge... If you take like MI3, for example, it's like a rabbit's foot. It's a MacGuffin. It doesn't really matter what it is, but it's just for that connection interaction. And basically, at the end of the movie, he has to kill this previous friend who he came out the ranks with as his second kill to complete the mission and become Bond. So by the end of the movie, he then becomes Bond. So it's very much like a Batman Begins formula. Then going on to his next mission, they said, look, here's the clue for the next mission. He opens up a case. It's a golden gun with a Spectre logo on it. So now, right, next person's going to be man with a golden gun. So that is kind of how I would do it for modern day audience. Have the complete build up and then have him become Bond at the end of it, which then launches your franchise, very much like Batman. And then after that, just keep those threads going. Each one is a different villain trying to get through to the main man before you have the big blowout. But bring in those iconic villains. You can have like a Jaws come in, just different variations of these characters and, Odd Job and all this kind of stuff, and just, do it that way. So that's kind of my take.
They're such good villains. You kind of got to introduce.
Yeah, exactly. Just kind of reimagine them and just, have it done in a different way. So that's kind of my take on how I would do it. So,
the only other way I thought, with going back to what Sacha said about, going back to sort of Skyfall, the only other way you could do it was if you was to do a film about a character that no one really knows has got anything to do with Bond, and you somehow cross it over with Skyfall. So there's someone in there at some point, or some sort of crossover. Then that character becomes the next Bond, if you know what I mean. So you could have someone that doesn't have to be Skyfall, but that would be quite good. It's interesting. Say like an unknown, no one actually knows it's a James Bond film or anything to do with it, but there's this sort of crossover. Then everyone's like, oh wow.
Yeah, okay.
And then he then could possibly take up the mantle, or she could take up the mantle, and that would be a way of continuing with the existing.
I think for the die-hard fans, I think the issue is we want to have a character called Bond, and so if it's not Bond, then it's not quite the same. But let's talk about casting. So. We've obviously, because since this has come out, in the last few years, every time when Craig said he's not coming back, we've had the list of like same old people in terms of who they should be Bond, Tom Hardy and Idris Elba and all this kind of stuff. These men are too old for the role. Okay. These men are too old for the role, firstly. Secondly, there is two different schools of thought that Bond has generally been cast as a fairly unknown person. They'll be recognisable in the UK through TV or some minor movies, but generally to a worldwide audience, they're relatively low-key. So Sean Connery wasn't a huge name worldwide. Roger Moore, Timothy Dalton, even Pierce Brosnan and stuff like that. None of them were household names across the world. So you could very much go in a similar fashion to that, to kind of keep that there. However, from a marketing point of view these days, if you don't have a name, is that a bit of a kind of a setup to failure, because we may think that, yeah, we want somebody unknown, but there is something to be said about having somebody recognizable on that poster sheet to say, this person's in it, they're Bond, come and enjoy it. So it'd be interesting to see what your guys' take are on that.
That was the same, which is why I thought about the, going back to the 50s. I thought, well, that I would really like that. But at the same time, would you get bums on seats? Would the younger generation go and see it? So from that point of view, I said, well, no, you might want to go for more of a modern day. So it's the same thing there. That's what I thought.
I think James Bond itself is big enough a draw that people would see an unknown. I mean, anything else, you might need the star power, but the name James Bond is the star power normally. And I think people would go and see it and be, ready to embrace a new up-and-coming actor. Just like a lot of the supporting cast that aren't the older people, like Judi Dench and stuff, were lesser-known actors. Ben Whishaw was a very brave Q, as were... a lot, the Moneypenny and all these people. There was, they were fairly unknown. They'd done some things, and you might recognise them from the odd thing, but they were kind of early on in their careers. So, but that said, I think that people do like big star power. But I agree with you that all the most of the suggested ones are way too old. I mean, what's it? Daniel Craig is 53 now, so you really want to be casting mid-30s ideally, so that they've got time to grow. So which is not to say there aren't people on that list that, even though they're famous and big, like people like Henry Cavill, I think would make an amazing Bond just because he's ridiculously good looking, actually British, very suave, and could pull it off. He'd be a return.
There's something about Cavill which I can't turn off in my brain that thinks he would be awesome. Now the trouble is, obviously, he's been Superman, which are he is very much a household name, but the way he's been treated by DC, I don't think Superman's necessarily going to be on the cards anymore. He was great in Mission Impossible. He was really great in The Man from U.N.C.L.E. There's just something about him and his look, his personality, charisma, I can definitely see in that role. And I think if I was going to go for a named person, Cavill will be my pick.
If it's any of the ones that are bandied around that are on the list, I agree. Tom Hardy, Idris Elba, all of those, no. Tom Hiddleston, no. But I think the only two that on that often pop up that I would very much entertain is Henry Cavill and Richard Madden as two potential Bonds. I think they're the right sort of age. Richard Madden's obviously a little bit younger than Cavill, but and they look like what you'd expect Bond to look like. They look amazing in a tux.
So Greg, you've mentioned obviously Henry Cavill. You've mentioned Richard Madden, who Game of Thrones fame, and obviously he did The Bodyguard, which kind of lent to a lot of people thinking, he could probably pull off Bond. Just seen him in Eternals. Did you have anybody else on your list who could do it?
I think if they're the two older ones, I think if you were going younger, if you were kind of doing it as in growing up, I'd go for someone like Nicholas Hoult. I think he's a good-looking chap, and he has charm, and he's or maybe someone like Sam Claflin from sort of Hunger Games and things like that, who again, good-looking guy. But you've got to go prequel, sort of young, in training, sort of thing. Going through the Commander Bond years, Afghanistan, as you say, or hit the ground running with someone in their sort of early 30s, mid 30s. I think
Nicholas Holt's a great shout. He's like 31, good age.
Yeah, I had him on my list.
Did anybody else have Nicholas Hoult on their list?
Yep.
Yeah.
I had him on there.
Yeah. I've quick one. I totally agree with Greg on the whole thing where the brand sells the product. In the case with Bond, it's like Star Wars. You don't need a famous person in Star Wars. It's the IP that sells more than the movie star. It's already inbuilt. Whenever they announce the new Bond, the marketing goes crazy over whoever that actor is. I've seen it twice in my lifetime, because I don't really remember when they did it for Dalton myself. I was too young, but it's a huge thing. Whoever the new guy will be, you'll see him everywhere. You know what I mean? Billboards, you wouldn't be able to escape him. In terms of famous actors, though, you hear what the Sun prints out every 5 minutes when it's a bad news day. Some of those actors, a handful of those actors, I'd be like, I'd like to see their take. Mm-hmm. So I've got a list for famous actors that have been around during the years, kind of thing, that I would still like to see their take. Mm-hmm. But that doesn't necessarily mean I want them as Bond anymore, mm-hmm. if that makes sense. Mm-hmm. But it's like a what if kind of thing. Mm-hmm. And then you've got who I actually want to see as Bond in terms of, the up and comings to stroke unknowns. Mm-hmm. So, yeah.
So who's a couple of your famous ones then?
Who, mine? Yeah. Okay, so everyone says Tom Hardy. I love Tom Hardy as an actor. I don't see it look-wise personally, but he's always an actor where I'm intrigued to see what he pulls out. Mm-hmm. And just because of that, I just want to see his take. That doesn't necessarily mean that I would like it. Mm-hmm. He doesn't strike the person straight away for me, but after watching him act in quite a lot of indie films and a lot of films over the past 20 years, I'm intrigued to see the take, mm-hmm. even though I just saw everyone go, fuck off Tom Hardy.
I've seen his take on Venom, and I don't want him to do any more takes of his own take.
Yeah, I kind of put that in a black void somewhere. But no, people who I thought he'd make a great Bond straight away, two actors come to mind. Christian Bale, mm-hmm. pre-Batman. Even now, he's a bit old now, but then, you know what? Roger Moore was 45 when he did Live and Let Die. Mm-hmm. Depends what take you go. But Christian Bale has always kind of been on my radar until he was the Batman. Yeah. You know what I mean? And then
he's 47
after Batman,
now. It's a bit old.
He's just too famous. Yeah, he's 47, but like I said, Roger Moore 45.
But that's a different time. That was a different time. It was appealing to adults then. If you want to get the right audience,
this is a what if, isn't it? It's not who I actually want. It's a what if. And when I did think that, this was pre-Batman Begins.
Yeah. 10 years
when
ago,
he was of age. So yeah. The other person, and I still make a case for this guy, Michael Fassbender.
Yeah.
Michael Fassbender in X-Men First Class is James Bond. Mm-hmm. He is Connery Bond in that film, man. He's fucking amazing. And when they actually casted Magneto for that film, Matthew Vaughn was like, I want to pick my James Bond in this character. And that's why he was cast as Magneto. I personally think if he wasn't an A-lister, he would be my first choice.
Yeah.
To be honest. He's just too good.
He is great. He's 44 now. So, he is on the older side. But again, 8-10 years ago, absolutely within a shout. Absolutely. So,
but otherwise, Henry Cavill is on everyone's list. And, as the famous guy that, they'd want, he is on my list. But for me, it's Fassbender over Cavill.
Okay.
Mainly because I don't think Cavill's that great an actor. Outside of Man of Steel, which he did a good job for the movie, but none of the roles that he has picked outside of that Mission Impossible has flexed his acting muscles. He doesn't do indies. He always does tentpoles. So I don't know. I really don't know. I know he was close to Bond, but that first time out, because Martin Campbell really wanted him. That was the director of Casino Royale.
Yeah.
But Barbara Broccoli didn't, and that's why Craig got the role. So I don't know if he's even a conversation, really, because of what happened first time round. If he had grown as an actor in a lot of different productions, I would be like, yeah, sure, fucking Henry Cavill. But when I see Henry Cavill, I see Superman. I don't see James Bond, unfortunately. Even though he's got the look and everything, my brain would have to make that... it's very hard to divorce him as Superman in my eyes.
Especially with his
that's just me. He's an actor. So act and do your job, and hopefully gets it. I don't know. I know it'll please a lot of people.
Yeah, for me, for the type of Bond that I want, he would be my first choice for an A-lister. The reason being is the personality and the charisma that he brings across in The Man from U.N.C.L.E. speaks volumes to the potential type of Bond that I would want. The way he delivered in Mission Impossible Fallout, I think he's got enough for Bond. He's not necessarily going to be the most deep character actor, but that's not what you're wanting for Bond. For my Bond actor, I don't need this huge history of doing all arts or indie films. I just need somebody who can show a lot of charm. That comes across in all his interviews. You know, he's a really down-to-earth guy when you speak to him on the interviews, and he's got a lot of charm, and I think he can bring that gravitas to the role. Even the lighter side of like the Superman and stuff like that, when we did see it, you know, to me it comes across. So for an A-lister, he's my number one choice. Lee, who did you have in terms of A-listers? Or did you have any A-listers?
No, to be honest, I didn't, because I agree with what we've previously mentioned, that, you know, an A-lister, like you say, I do know what you're saying about Henry Cavill, but like you say, he would play it well. But I think when I look at him, it's Henry Cavill. It is Superman, and that I think would be a bit of a distraction. Mm-hmm. I like the idea of, especially where we spoke earlier about wanting to maybe possibly take it further into a franchise universe, whatever. I don't know if I would see him as that. You'd kind of want to go with someone not as famous, mm-hmm. and make it a little bit more believable. Mm-hmm. So Nicholas Hoult was one of them. I thought Jamie Bell was another one.
Mm-hmm.
Tom Hopper from the Umbrella Academy, and I know that James Norton from The Mafia has been mentioned as well.
Okay,
I thought those two are quite. They were quite. I agree with them.
Mm-hmm. I think a lot of it's going to come down to whether, when they're doing the next Bond movie, and again with this whole Amazon deal, are they going to go for the unknown or the big star based on the American audience? UK audience will go see Bond based on Bond, not necessarily sure the American audience will, and that ultimately is what a lot of decisions are made for. So, Neil, who did you have for Bond?
I had 6 choices.
Okay.
All right. So
are we doing our famous actors, or?
Well, just do the famous actors first, and then we'll come to some others.
Okay.
Well,
sure.
I mean, my picks, like, when I say the names, you'll know them all. But I mean, barring one person you guys might not know. Sam Kaplan is pretty much my number one choice.
Where would we know him from?
Hunger Games. What else is he in? I mean, he's in Last Night in Soho for literally one scene. But he'd be my first round draft pick. I think he's a good actor, and he's got something about him where I'm just like, he could do the job.
Okay.
Right? He looks like, you're, I don't want to say upper class, but you're refined, but you'll rough it, if that makes sense. So Sam Kaplan, Nicholas Hoult.
Yep.
He's definitely one. James McAvoy. I know that obviously age is a factor and whatnot, but I think James McAvoy could do a nice job.
Okay.
Personally, I mean, I know he's short as hell, and I know that he's not not as refined, but I just like looking at him. I feel like he'd be that Timothy Dalton, Daniel Craig-esque Bond.
I just don't see him wowing the ladies. I don't see it.
Well, I think that's the thing is like, because I think a lot of people either don't know or don't remember, Bond is supposed to be, he ain't supposed to be the pretty boy that we see wooing the ladies. He's supposed to have some big chunky ass scar running down the side of his face.
Yeah, but I'm not saying from just purely attractive point of view. I'm talking about charm. I don't know whether I could see that from McAvoy on screen in terms of that kind of seductive kind of charm. I could be wrong. You might be able to put it up, but I personally just don't see it from what I've seen of it.
Yeah.
Well, that's what's thinking of Cavill. He's just too, like you say, too good looking.
Yeah.
It's like Bond shouldn't really be like that. It should be more sort of rugged, I suppose. Like,
the everyman.
Exactly, yeah.
Well, Sean Connery was good looking back in the day as our first Bond. So, okay, so who else did you have, Neil?
And the other three were Matt Smith, Luke Evans, right, and Jonathan Bailey.
Where would we know Jonathan Bailey from?
He's in Bridgerton. He plays like the girl in Bridgerton. He's like the oldest brother. So him.
All right. Okay.
I mean, he's an unknown, but he's a big strapping guy, and I'm like, you know what? He can grow into the role.
Okay. I can kind of see it. Maybe. Yeah. Okay.
But in even with those, I feel like is it Richard Matheson?
Madison.
Yeah.
Madsen, yeah.
Madison. Sorry. Yeah.
Madden.
Like you pick him, you ain't going wrong.
Yeah.
He looks a little bit like Orlando Bloom.
Yeah, he does. And I think for me, what kind of sold it is when I saw him in Eternals. After watching it, I thought I can see him as Bond. I really can. And I don't think
what was the
Eternals. I don't think he's coming back for the next film. So
what was the mini series he was in?
The Bodyguard.
The Bodyguard.
That was the one that made me think.
Yeah.
Maybe. I really enjoyed that.
Yeah. No, for real. Okay, so who have I got? So yeah, Richard Madden. I think from a non A-lister, because I don't think he's not quite there as an A-lister. I think Richard Madden is probably my top choice for Bond, not for Cavill. The other choice I had was Henry Golding. I think he could do a terrific job as Bond. Do you guys know who I'm talking about when I talk about Henry Golding?
Yeah.
Okay.
But I saw G.I. Joe and he deletion from that.
Yeah.
I was like, you can delete whatever role you want to be, delete.
Yeah, okay. So he didn't do himself any favours with that. But for the listeners and watchers who maybe don't know, so Henry Golding, yeah, he was in Snake Eyes. He was in Crazy Rich Asians. He was in The Gentleman. So a really fantastic actor, and I think he could really, really deliver. But the other person who I thought would be a great fit, again, a Bridgerton actor, and he's been mentioned a lot, is Regé Jean Page. I could definitely see him as Bond. However, he is signed up for the Saint for Paramount Plus series. So obviously they saw that and thought, yeah, he could do that, and it's a very similar role. So because that's something that Roger Moore did before he became Bond. So yeah, so I think because he's not available, I think probably Richard Madden is my top choice. Any other choices that we haven't mentioned that people want to speak out about?
Well, I haven't done my unknown choices.
Cool.
I just did my famous actors. Okay, so first up on the list, Daniel Craig, come back.
Move on. He's dead. Let's go.
Unless you bring in a Ouija board, he ain't coming back.
So
he's not an unknown anyway.
Okay.
Go on.
Okay. I'm going to go from bottom to top. Okay. Bottom, Jamie Bell.
Oh, yeah.
Yeah, Lee mentioned it.
Jamie Bell, mainly because that guy's a chameleon. I think he could play anything. Bond, he's never had. He's known, but he's never been the A-list.
I can see him as a 006. Actor agent.
Bond, that. You know what? I never thought of that.
Yeah.
He would be a good 006. The other person, another guy that's in everything for the past 20 years, has only had a handful of like A-list credits, like top billings. It's Carl Urban. Carl Urban, I think, is a damn good shout.
I actually have him down as a different character.
Oh, okay, fair enough. Next up, Dan Stevens.
Yeah,
I can see it.
Dan Stevens. Okay. Richard Madden is my number 2. My number 1, and I've said this bare times on the podcast. Okay, bare times on Zito's gang. Been championing this guy, Cillian Murphy. Cillian Murphy is my guy, hands down. Mainly because when I watch Peaky Blinders, I see Timothy Dalton's fucking Bond. every day sometimes. And he's a guy that he's done a lot of work, a lot of indies, where he's kind of done that kind of character in different spades. And I know a lot of people know him from The Dark Knight and maybe that crappy horror movie Red Eye, fuck that film, and a lot of Nolan stuff. But I really do like Cillian Murphy. I can't shake it. It probably will be Richard Madden or Henry Cavill. Fuck, he's my guy.
I get where you're going from. I just think there's something evil about him. The way he looks. I would see him as a Bond villain.
Dalton?
I could see him as a Bond villain.
Have you seen Timothy Dalton? My man rolled with Ming the Merciless. Bro.
Yeah. Again, Cillian Murphy, I could see him as 006 or even A Man with a Golden Gun. I could see him in those kind of roles, as opposed to Bond. But it's not that I can't see where you're coming from with it. I do.
He can be Blofeld, man.
He could be Blofeld. Exactly.
I mean, can I point out something that it's been sort of vaguely touched upon with Bond, which is who's too good looking and stuff like that. But with Bond, there's never been too good looking. He's meant to be a good looking guy, and and as you said, Sean Connery, Roger Moore, they were all considered heartthrobs of the day.
Yeah, Pierce Brosnan was a good looking chap.
Pierce Brosnan was. They all were. And
still a great looking chap.
And so I don't mean to be. There's a certain the Bond scale of you're this good looking, you can be Bond, and if you're slightly funny looking, especially in the lore of Bond, then for scarification or bugly eyes or weirdness, and suddenly you're like, oh, you're a villain because ugliness is
yes, ugly is bad.
But, I mean, people. So I mean, it's not my place to judge. I don't pretend to be Adonis or anything, but at the same point, you've got people like Matt Smith, who's got a very distinct face, and Cillian Murphy, who's got a look about him. But it's people like even the latest Bond villain,
Rami
Malek, yeah.
He's not traditionally good looking, and so you knew he was going to be a villain rather
big
than
eyes.
Bond.
Yeah.
And same with Matt Smith and stuff like that. They are striking in many ways, but they're just maybe a little bit too far from the norm for Bond, which is terrible and misogynistic and awful and everything and all these things. And so
but
sort of
sex sells. And with James Bond, what you want is you want the men to want to be them and the women to want them. That's
exactly
what you want from your character.
I ain't never in my life wanted to be Roger Moore. I promise you.
I'd love to be Roger Moore.
Not one
You
day.
probably didn't, but people in their 30s and 40s when that was out, I'm sure they did.
Not one day. But you know what? I mean, on that note, someone who could, I mean, technically they're not unknown, but they're unknown in the realm of film, who's considered very good looking by all accounts, who's very young. You could probably fling Harry Styles in there.
Okay, moving on. Right, let's move on to M. Okay, so we're going to cast M. I'm going to go first. There was one choice for me. One of the great things I did like about Bond was the relationship between Judi Dench and Daniel Craig's characters. I thought that was a fantastic relationship. I love the female dynamic of it. That's something that I'd want to reintroduce into my series. I went for Olivia Colman. I think she would.
Well, that's me done as well. That was my only choice as well.
I think she would just absolutely nail it.
Yeah,
she can have the British upstandingness that she demonstrated in The Queen. She can have that cheeky repertoire with him. I just, as a female lead in that, I just couldn't see anyone else. She's my number one. Sign her up for 7 movies. Job done. So Greg's on my level. Fantastic.
I actually had her.
You had her as well.
Yeah, I had her as well.
Okay. Any other shout to him?
I'm ashamed to say I didn't have her, but hearing her name, I'm like, yeah, she'd kill it, boy.
Yeah, right.
I think having if there's going to be the debate of do we need to have a female Bond for the sake of representation in this, which I don't think we do. I think strong female character is important, but there was no better M, even including the original ones, than Judi Dench. I think
exactly. And Bond having to answer to a woman is a great dynamic because you have that boss relationship. You also have that adopted mother relationship.
Yeah,
and that's what keeps that relationship interesting.
And I love that. And that was my only choice as well. So.
Any other shouts for M? Who else we got?
Go ahead, Lee.
For ladies, Fiona Shaw from Killing Eve. because she plays
Yes.
a similar M character in it.
Yeah, good job.
The other one's Celia Imrie from Mamma Mia and the Marigold Hotel.
Oh yeah, okay, yeah.
They were the two. The other one, Tilda Swinton. I thought she might take on.
I've got Tilda Swinton as a potential Bond villain.
Me too.
Nice.
I got her as a villain as well. Yeah, I put her down as both. Yeah, but for the blokes, I went with Benedict Cumberbatch.
He was on my mail list. Yeah.
Hugh Bonneville, and Bill Nye.
Bill Nye's a really good shout.
Yes.
I was thinking of that older British actor to do those because I even thought about having Christian Bale as the M character. Like he could have been a retired Bond who's then got into that position. He could even join a mission at one stage and be like, yeah. So you don't quite get him Bond, but you kind of get him in that role. Any other shouts for M?
Yeah, I had. Sorry, go ahead.
All I was going to say, just to agree with Lee, that I think there's something to be said about the sort of the British upper class that suits them. So some people like Hugh Bonneville or Bill Nighy who can pass off as I think just adds a gravitas to it. Or someone like Olivia Colman, who I would watch do anything.
I was going to go Colin Firth, but again, I thought it was too close to Kingsman.
Yeah, that's the issue, isn't it?
Okay, so I had bring back Judi Dench.
Okay.
Like J.K. Simmons. They ain't broke. If it ain't broke, introduce the new Bond and have a
brought her
retire
back from the Brosnan era for Craig, and then they killed her. You need to let go of these characters who dead, man. Craig ain't coming back. Judi Dench ain't coming back.
If it ain't broke, don't
Move
fix
on.
it. All right, so from her, I thought Helen Mirren.
Yep.
Yeah.
On my list.
Yeah.
Yep, Helen Mirren. That was kind of a two on the nose kind of choice, but there you go. And then I went for Coleman. Then after that, because we're bringing back characters, I threw in Pierce Brosnan for jokes.
With the idea of
would never happen. But then I thought of other male M's, and I was like, okay, well, if he was an older guy, get Sir Patrick Stewart, but that's a bit too on the nose because it's Sir Patrick Stewart. He's always a mentor
Charlie's
thing.
Angels.
And then I was like, let's have Michael Caine. He was best friends with Roger, and he was best friends with
he hasn't.
Sean
He's
Connery in real
rumor.
life.
Oh, okay.
He was best friends with those guys. He may as well take the top job and be their boss.
I considered him very much. I just thought I need someone to sign up for 7 films. I just don't know.
Then you replace him. Innit?
If you go with
You get him
Sacha's
for that
idea,
first film.
if you go with Sacha's idea of Pierce Brosnan, that ties in with Kenan's idea of Bond becoming M.
Yeah. So, and now the last 3. This is a guy who I really want to see in films. He's one of my favourite British actors. He's an older gentleman, and I can't even think of a movie he's actually been in.
Okay.
But David Jason.
Yeah. Again, he's very old now.
Yeah,
He's very old now.
but he's still knocking about on the BBC.
Yeah, in like a one
Open all
room
hours.
situation thing. He's 81. It's a bit of a stretch.
Yeah, true. Get him in for the one movie, replace him, innit?
I will avenge you.
Otherwise, here are a group of younger actors that might have been on the field. They're probably more like Bond's age kind of thing, or a little bit older. Idris Elba, Hugh Grant, and Matt Smith.
Yeah.
Matt Smith's probably a bit too young.
Yeah, I
but
think he's a bit too young. I could see Hugh Grant. I could definitely see that. I had considered him as well. But when I knew I wanted the female-mother relationship dynamic, there was only one choice for me. But okay, any other shouts for him?
Yeah. So from M, I had Ian Glenn.
Okay, yeah.
I see that.
Right. I had Patrick Stewart as well. I had Helen Mirren as well. I also had Jenny Agutter.
Doesn't ring a bell. Who
She's in Logan's Run. She's in American Werewolf in London. She was in Winter Soldier.
Just looking her up. Oh, okay. Yeah.
Yeah.
Who's that?
Jenny Agutter.
Jenny Agutter. She's 68.
Mm.
Okay, yeah.
And
yeah, I guess I don't know her enough to comment on her acting chops. The face looks familiar.
Yeah.
I do recognize her, but I can't
Cool
comment.
midwife.
So.
yeah. And I had two others. I had Gary Oldman.
Mm-hmm.
Ooh.
And the last name, but I know that this is an outside choice because he's a bit gruff, is Liam Cunningham. You know the Onion Knight from Game of Thrones?
So Davros, yeah.
Oh, yes. Yes.
Ah, okay. Yeah.
Yeah. Yeah, maybe. I don't know how strong he could be. You know, he's always kind of the second fiddle that I've seen him in, so it's hard to imagine him being in charge, but I get it. I do get it. Okay, so let's move on to Q. I've changed some of the roles around in this. I've done some role reversals because I want to see some different dynamics. So as much as I saw Bond having to answer to a woman for M, I wanted to continue that trend with Q, and I wanted to do something a bit different. I went with Sandra Oh. So she would be my Q. Yeah, and I just think, again, that could be a great dynamic between Bond and, you know, another female character. Someone who can get involved as well if they need to, in terms of a team, in terms of backup, providing support and so forth, but obviously with the gadgets. So, yeah, who else? You know, I've tried to limit it down to one or two choices for each one because, again, I could have gone on for ages because I had, like, David Tennant, for example, if I was going for a guy. So there was a lot of other choices, but I've tried to keep my list long. So, Q, what about everybody else?
Like you, I had David Tennant.
Mm-hmm.
I know he's ancient, so this would be a long shot. Ian McKellen.
Yeah, okay.
Ooh.
Right. Toby Jones.
Toby Jones is a good shout, yeah. Mm-hmm. Yeah, I do like that.
And I don't know why, but Peter Dinklage.
Right, okay.
I feel like he'd be my guy.
All right, that's a good shout. I quite like that. I also had Hugh Laurie as well.
Hugh Laurie, I can see that.
Yeah, kind of in his like house persona in a sense. Do you know what I mean? So kind of see that. But okay, so thanks for that, Neil. Lee, who did you have?
Again, because I was sort of going for the unknown was probably Isaac Hempstead Wright, Bran Stark. From Game of
Bran
Thrones.
Stark. Okay, yeah.
Jim Parsons.
Okay. All right.
Matt Smith I had for Q, and potentially Eddie Redmayne.
Okay. I've
because he's a bit from Fantastic Beast.
So okay.
I thought that from the Fantastic Beast role, I thought that was that could be a Q.
Mm-hmm. Okay, good shout. Sacha, who did you have for Q?
Who did I have for Q? Okay, so I actually had the following. Give me a sec. There we go. Okay, so I had Himesh Patel from Tenet and Yesterday. All really well known for EastEnders as Tamwa.
Yeah.
But you know, since leaving EastEnders a few years back, he's really started propping up in a lot of films.
Yeah, I thought he was great in
indies and stuff, and really growing.
Mm-hmm.
He was quite good in Yesterday. Mm-hmm. I thought he carried it really well. Maybe it's the Tamar from EastEnders thing because he's got that kind of I have a brain. I know what I'm doing. I'm really nerdy, and he has fantastic comedy timing as well. From being that kind of guy. So I was like, he'd be great as Q, you know, as a young Q that's like, you know, into gadgets and shit like that. I could totally see him doing it. Otherwise, if we're going for someone older, Nicholas Lyndhurst.
Yeah.
I think. And going off a similar trajectory with...
Unicorns and Horses cast.
Yeah, I love that show, mate. I love it.
You can tell what Zach's been watching during lockdown, yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah. Look, during lockdown all the time, mate.
Cassandra, Moneypenny.
Otherwise, John Hannah, I thought would be good.
Oh, right, yeah. I haven't seen him in much. Yeah, okay, lately. Okay.
Yeah, John Hannah and, what was it, Simon Pegg?
Yeah, I had Simon Pegg, but then I thought it was too similar to Mission Impossible. I just...
I guess.
Yeah. Okay, cool. Greg, who did you have?
So one of them was Himesh Patel. I just I just like him in that, and he seems intelligent and things. I wanted to avoid a lot of the ones that have been said. I'm not going to name and shame anyone, but where it's just too on the nose. Anyone who's previously played the Doctor, anyone who's previously played that exact character or Brainiac, it seems too on the nose casting. I do like the idea of Hugh Laurie. No, I didn't. More of an unknown. There's a guy called Adil Akhtar who was like in Four Lions and Enola Holmes. And this one.
Oh yeah.
And like him, I think he'd be comic relief and stuff. Or slightly out there, just someone like Richard E. Grant, just as a sort of character, has a sort of gravitas to him and what have you. So
okay, that's a good shout. The other person I did have was actually Dev Patel, but I thought that was beneath him, in a sense. Do you know what I mean? But yeah, I think he was another person.
I actually had him on the list fairly early on. I actually deleted him during the podcast. Actually.
Okay, interesting. All
so
right.
yeah.
So let's move on to Moneypenny. I've done a swap on this. So the same way I've done with Q, I've actually had a male secretary feeding into Olivia Colman. So I think that will generate a different kind of friendship for Bond, because obviously Q's a female. And then you can see the way that I see it in the sense of Olivia Colman's M, she will speak to Moneypenny the way she wished she could speak to Bond, in a sense. So he ends up taking a lot of the brunt and the frustrations because Bond's doing something different than what she's telling him to do and going outside the circles and stuff like that. So I actually had Josh O'Connor from The Crown. He played Prince Charles in The Crown. So he is my Moneypenny, or Mike Penny, whatever I end up calling him. But yeah, I wanted to change that up a little bit and have something a little bit different. I just think the female Moneypenny Bond flirting, it's been done so much. I wanted to change it up. I'd rather him flirt with Q rather than Moneypenny. And Sandra Oh being a slightly older woman and Bond flirting with an older woman, I thought that might be quite interesting. So, and Moneypenny. Greg, who do you have for Moneypenny?
I'll be honest, I haven't actually thought that much about Moneypenny. I had an idea of the gender reverse as well, just to make it, because the problem is it goes back to the keeping it sort of relevant and less mystic and slightly sort of sex pesty and stuff. And so the modern version of Kick-Ass Moneypenny is all well and good, but because they've done that recently, I wanted to do something different. And so I haven't really thought about casting, but I thought about potentially making a male with the idea of someone like Olivia Colman as M. But yeah, if not, I guess they'd have to make it fairly kick-ass and make it almost like, sort of Naomi Harris's sort of agent sort of thing going on. But to be honest, because they've done that, I think sort of either retire the role for now to begin with. So that was my main thought, was do we need a Moneypenny in this? Yeah. Just for the sake of name recognition, can we not get rid of it for a little bit? Gone are the days where, he goes in and is slightly sexual harassing to Moneypenny before going into the office. So I don't feel that we have to have the rogue every single character sort of name checked in every single film. So
that's very true, because I think what I did is I merged the Moneypenny role with like the Bill Tanner, who's played by Rory Kinnear, who's that my Hamm man. So I've kind of merged those two roles rather than having just a secretary Moneypenny. So that person is going to be able to support Bond in the field, as opposed to just being like the secretary role. So okay, cool. Sacha, who did you have for Moneypenny?
I didn't
cast.
I just didn't.
Cool. No worries.
Didn't cast. I'm not. She's not. I wouldn't know where to begin with casting Moneypenny, to be honest. I didn't do that. I didn't do the homework.
If I was doing female, I'd go Jodie Comer.
I found the other characters more interesting, to be honest.
Yeah.
So
If I was going female, I'd go Jodie Comer. I think she can do anything. So, Lee, did you cast Moneypenny?
Yeah, I did. I mean, I can appreciate what we're saying about things do to change things. I did like Naomi Harris's, Moneypenny.
Yeah.
I like the idea that she was able to get out of the office, and they could probably have even expanded on that even more. To be honest, there's probably other things that they could have done with that character. So I got Karen Gillan.
Good shout. Yeah.
I thought she would quite suit the role. Carrie Mulligan.
Yeah. I actually had her down first before I decided on the gender swap. So yeah.
Yeah. They were my two that I thought would probably bring something to the role.
Good shout. Neil?
Well, I personally, I like Naomi Harris's iteration, and I would have expanded on that. Similar to what you said, Ken, about merging Moneypenny with Tanner. But the way I would have it is, I'd want it to be like the most unassuming person, but the most lethal agent. And this is like, her official designation is secretary, but in actuality, her unofficial designation is she is M's bodyguard.
Yeah.
Yeah, that's good.
Yeah.
Right.
Be good.
And I wanted it to be like, this is someone who, I wanted it to be basically whoever I pick is someone who's going to flirt with Bond, but at the same time, it's like they have full control of the situation, and it would be a thing of Bond is never going to get them.
Yeah.
Like they will basically lead him on a string. Like they'll let him get as close to the carrot as he wants, and then it's like, pop, here's the stick. Now go about your business. I had Gemma Atherton.
Yeah.
Right.
wasn't she in a film?
Yeah, she was in
one of the. She got.
Was she in Quantum of Solace?
Yeah, she was. She was the girl that got all.
Oh yeah. I forgot about that, but yeah. I flirted with the idea of Emilia Clarke, but I feel like I don't know. I had Gemma Chan.
Yeah.
Right.
Yeah.
Alicia Vikander.
Tomb Raider. Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah, that's a good
And
shout.
Natalie Dormer.
Okay. All right. Some good shouts there. Yeah, no, I like the idea of the bodyguard thing. That's good.
Yeah.
Okay, let's move on to Felix. I know this is one of the passion ones for Sacha. I had two. So one was Carl Urban as Felix. I think he could really deliver that role. But he'd be my second choice, I think. My first choice is Sterling K. Brown. Love that man.
Ooh.
Love that man.
God, that's a good choice.
And I think he'll just smash that. He can show intensity, he can show humor, passion. Love this man. I love the 99 and that episode of The Box with him in the 99. Just that episode. This guy. Yeah, so Sterling K. Brown, he is my Felix.
Yeah.
I actually had Carl Urban and Sterling K. Brown.
Cool. All right.
Yeah.
Interesting. All right. Cool.
From what I told you before the other day, I dropped a lot of the famous names.
Because Sacha and I talked about it during lunch one day when we were playing COD, and we were talking about having an American, because obviously it's going to be sort of like a CIA agent, who's suave enough to kind of pull off the kind of illustration that Sacha's familiar with, especially from the books. So he was looking at, the main names that come to like Clooney and Pitt and all this, but you can't have that kind of name in this kind of movie. So Sacha did have a list. I was like, don't tell me, because wait for the podcast.
Yeah.
And it sounds like you've like tweaked it since then.
Yeah. I've tweaked it. Pitt and Clooney are still on there, though, because I couldn't shake them. But the other names that were on there, they've gone.
Right.
They've completely gone, because there was quite a few A-listers on there. And to be quite honest, in the books, Brad Pitt's probably the closest.
Okay.
He is probably the closest. Like, if he wasn't Brad Pitt, he would get the role, basically. Clooney's got that gravitas as well, and I think Clooney'd be very good. But again, he's too A-list, too much of an A-lister. So if we're going down the list, so to speak, 2 actors, both in a lot of films and TV. They are John Hamm and Chris Pine. Those are my
them on my list.
I had John Hamm on my list, and I took him off because I thought Sterling K. Brown. John Hamm was on my list as well.
Okay.
Yeah.
The other guy, Scott Caan.
Yep.
Oh yeah. Yep.
Yep. And then I've got Lawrence Fishburne. If we're going for a similar kind of take in what we've seen in the most recent Bond. Yeah. And funnily enough, Anthony Mackie.
Oh, okay. Yeah.
That's a good. I like that.
That's a good shout. Cool.
Yeah.
Lee, did you cast Felix at all?
No, I didn't.
No,
No.
that's cool. Neil, what about yourself?
I had. So, I mean, as I mentioned, I had both Chris Pine and George Clooney on mine. But I also had Robert Downey Jr. Like, I understand about people being A-list, but I'm like, it's a small role. It's one day's job at best.
You'd only charge 25 million rather than 50.
But it's a thing of the way I look at it. I know, obviously, Bond is the IP. You go to watch a Bond film for Bond, not whoever is cast in that role. But I'm just like, I want there to be like a pleasant surprise. The audience is sitting there watching it, and then Felix turns up, and it's like, holy shit, that's Felix, So like, so I had Clooney, I had Chris Pine, I had Robert Downey Jr. I also had Giovanni Ribisi.
Doesn't ring a bell for me.
Friends.
Gone in 66
Friends.
Yes.
Yeah.
Gotcha.
Yeah. Him. And the last 2 names I had were Oscar Isaacs.
Yeah, I contemplated
and Josh Brolin.
I hadn't considered Josh Brolin.
Brolin would be interesting. Funnily enough, his dad actually auditioned for Bond. Way
James Brolin.
Okay.
James Brolin. He was going to be potentially the first American James Bond. Both him and Batman, Adam West.
Okay.
Both up for it.
Greg, did you
Did
cast
someone
Felix
say
at
Michael
all?
B. Jordan?
Sorry, Lee, what was that?
Did someone say Michael B. Jordan as well?
No, he was on my list, but Sterling K, again, trumped him.
I think Sterling K. Brown is better than everyone I mentioned. He's the guy.
Okay.
Even when
I didn't cast him, but to be honest, I think Sterling K is potentially the best. I really like Jeffrey Wright. He was one of the people I'd love to keep on because he had such gravitas and stuff. But I also like, I think RDJ would be just too big a name and Brad Pitt. But I do like the idea of James Brolin.
That's quite a nice touch. I like that. Yeah, someone who's quite gritty for that CIA agent.
Or maybe John Hamm. I quite like that as well. That's quite a nice touch. But I think Sterling K would be probably the best for it. So.
Okay, so let's move on to our first Bond girl. So my first Bond girl that I would have in the movie, there's a pick of 2. One was Florence Pugh from Black Widow. And then the second is Anna Taylor-Joy. I think
I got her on my list.
I think she's just phenomenal. I think she'll bring so much to that role. So I think both of them can bring a lot to it. They're, both stunning actresses, but more importantly, they are, they're bright, they're intelligent, they're both dramatic, they're both funny as well. They can bring a lot of charm to the role. So, those are my 2 Bond girl choices. Anybody else?
Yeah, I'd banked a couple.
Go on.
Priyanka Chopra.
Yes.
Right. Like you, I had Anya Taylor-Joy. I also had Sophia Boutella.
Okay, yeah.
I mean, I know that she's in Kingsman and that, but like that's her as a villain. I would like, she's bad, but bring her as a hero. You got something, right? I also had Rosalind Sanchez.
Rosalind Sanchez.
The most famous film I could think of to date that she's in is Rush Hour 2.
I'm just checking her out. Oh, okay. Yeah. Yeah, the face looks familiar. What else has she been in? She's been in Fantasy Island, 2021, Rush Hour 2, The Game Plan, Boat Trip, Grand Hotel, Act of Valor. Yeah, not the strongest of like CVs. Oh, she was Rush Hour 3 as well, apparently. But okay, yeah, I see that.
Yeah.
Any other Bond girls?
I had Margot Robbie.
She was, but I dropped her because she's just too big for me for this.
And the other one sort of like home was Zendaya.
Oh, was that? Yeah, yeah, that's a good shout. I can see that.
Yeah.
You know, I think, like, personally, what I feel was like a missed opportunity in Bond films, right? Salma Hayek.
Mm-hmm.
Agreed.
Like, she could be a Bond girl now.
If she was with Daniel Craig, yeah. If you're going younger, probably not.
Look at here, like,
well, then Bond does anyone, so why not? Why not? You know,
the whole theme of this is going to be James Bond and the mummy issues, isn't it? This is
yeah. He's got mummy issues. Hey.
Ooh. Cool. Any other Bond girls do we have?
Most of mine, I think, have actually been said for different things. So I had Florence Pugh after Black Widow. I just think she's hilarious. I think she's kick-ass. I had Jodie Comer as a possibility as a Bond girl, just because she's pretty fun.
Yeah.
And I've completely forgotten who my last one was. I can't remember. Interestingly, a few years ago, the person I wanted to see as a Bond girl was Anna de Armas after stuff like Knives Out and stuff, and obviously she ended up being her. So so obviously that's been removed recently, or over the last couple of years because of her actual.
Yeah, she's something I'd actually love to bring from that franchise, but the fact that she's going on to do now this John Wick spin-off, Ballerina, I'm like, all in that.
She's an exceptional actress. She's so good in Knives Out.
Actually, yeah. Sorry to interrupt, Greg. Actually, I think there is one other person I would think of as a Bond girl is Zoe Saldana.
Yeah,
I think he's been in every action thing. I just want to sometimes get away from the norm. My thing is that she's just kick out everything she ever does. Wasn't she in The Losers as well as on?
Yep. Losers, Colombiana. She's got a great big CV.
I like of the ones I didn't think of. I realised Zendaya as a core. I think she's
that's a good shout from Lee.
Stunning and strong character.
I also threw in a female villain, just because again I wanted to get this person in there. Alexandra Daddario.
Oh God, yes.
Yeah, so rather than having her as a Bond girl, I wanted her as a villain, so she could be that henchman type Bond villain woman type thing. So that's what I went for. Did anybody think about a female villain in terms of Bond girl? Well, does anyone have like a Bond girl villain as opposed to a main villain? No. Okay. Cool. Just me then. Right. Let's talk about Bond villain.
I like the idea of like what was done in GoldenEye, where you have like you've got the main villain and then the hench person is a hench woman.
Yeah, that's kind of what I was going for. Just something a little bit different. Yeah. Okay. So let's talk about Bond villains because they're probably most fun. So I had a list. I had a huge list. It was just I tried to narrow it down to 3. And I'm not even sure who I'd cast them as, but my 3 were Michael Keaton, Gary Oldman, and Eddie Redmayne.
I got Gary Oldman.
So yeah, Michael Keaton, Gary Oldman, Eddie Redmayne. They're my 3 Bond villains. Not sure which I would go through first, but I think they can all deliver that exceptionally. It might be reoccurring roles as opposed to killing them off. But when we were talking about earlier about how my version of the squad being split up, I definitely think people who we consider Bond, like Jamie Bell and stuff like that, could be like a 006 agent. So they wouldn't be the main villain, but they kind of be a sub-villain within that with these hierarchs. So who else do we have for Bond villains? Greg, let's start with yourself.
So as mentioned earlier, I had Tilda Swinton just because I think there's just no female Bond villains ever, other than this one's turned bad as part of turns out she's a double agent or whatever, and it's just like, why not have a powerful female Bond villain? And she has such gravitas and is almost non-binary anyway, has that sort of thing around her. So I think she'd make an excellent Bond villain.
Yeah, I think the closest we came to it was Kingsman Golden Circle, wasn't it? With Julianne Moore. So
yeah, and it works. It's brilliant. I'd also like to see someone like Michael Shannon have a go, because I think he's an excellent actor. I think he's
phenomenal.
Terrifying, and it's not so big that it would be obvious. And oh my god, this would be dream casting. You'll never get him in a million years because it is so beneath him. My god, if you can get someone like Daniel Day-Lewis to be a Bond villain,
he was top of my list, but I was like,
it never happened.
Yeah,
dream casting.
That's what creative control is about, though, isn't it? It's about who we'd want. So Daniel Day-Lewis all day.
I want him to become the new character that is like Ernest Stavros, but not Blofeld, but a new. Let's just fuck Blofeld. He's been done a million times now. Let's create a new villain that is so in control and stuff that he doesn't get beaten in the first one.
Yeah, he's my Thanos.
I want that. I want that in him, because he's just. I mean, when he plays villains, like Bill the Butcher, he just chews the scenery and he has such fun with it, and let there be blood and stuff like that. He'd just be phenomenal. I mean, he wouldn't do it in a million years because it would be so beneath him. And
it's true. It's true.
Oh my god, it'd be amazing.
I just need him in maybe 6 post-credit scenes for 6 movies, half a day's work, and then I'll just need you for my last movie. Okay, Neil, who did you have for Bond villains?
I had a shit ton.
I know, right? It was the easiest one to come up with, people.
Yeah, but a lot of them, I mean, I tried very hard, and I did wind up deleting a few.
Mm-hmm.
I was like, if people wanted you as a Bond, I want you as a villain.
Yeah. Mm-hmm.
So, Tom Hardy was on the list. Michael Fassbender is on my list. Mm-hmm. Idris Elba's on my list.
Sort of on my shortlist, yeah.
Yeah. I did have some other people, so I had Tilda Swinton.
Mm-hmm.
I had a choice, and it was just sitting on my head, and I was like, why do I want this person? But I just want this person. Sigourney Weaver.
Okay. Interested.
Right?
Mm-hmm.
So Sigourney Weaver, I had... and the other 2 choices, one of them you'd be like, I don't know about that. And the other one, I will not be offended if you kick me out of Zoom at a meeting, right? When I say the last name. So I had, I can't pronounce his real name, but Jamie Lannister.
Yes. Yeah.
Nikolai Coster-Waldau.
Yes.
Yes.
Yeah.
Very on board for that.
Yeah. Jamie. I also had
don't say
Cersei.
Harry Styles again.
No, I'm saying with that. Yeah, I did have what's her name, Lena Headey as one.
Yeah.
Because I did play with every time I wrote a man's name, I wrote a woman's name.
Mm-hmm.
But my last choice was Jared Leto.
Okay.
I can see your hand moving towards the button.
We seem to have lost connection. No, I get it.
Yeah.
For me, he's just too precious. I don't know. He's great at what he does in some of the things, and I think he believes he's above certain stations in terms of his own, in his own head and his own ego, and I think that can sometimes come off screen. But saying that, if you watch the trailer for the Gucci movie,
oh yeah,
it looks fantastic in that. Morbius, again, he's quite different. He is a very, very talented actor. I'll absolutely give him that. So being able to see what he would do with a Bond villain would be interesting. So I definitely say it would be an interesting casting choice. I'd love to see an audition for you to go away and say, you go create a Bond villain and then come back and show me what you got. I think that'd be fascinating. So, Lee, who did you have for your Bond villains?
I had Tilda Swinton, Rufus Sewell, from Men in High Castle.
Oh,
Yeah.
I haven't
Yeah.
seen the show, but I know the person. Yeah.
He is dope.
He's very good in A Knight's Tale as quite a sort of the villain and stuff. So yeah.
Oscar Isaac.
Yeah.
And Kate Blanchett. I thought she was decent.
Clay Blanchett. Yeah, that'd be cool. I could see that. Okay, cool.
Yeah.
Sasha, who you
I'll
got
try
for your
to
Bond
use-
villains?
First on the list, Gary Oldman. If I'm going to put Gary Oldman in anything, it's not going to be as a mentor or the gadget master or the nice Gary Oldman.
You
Do
want
know
to
why?
chop that scene.
He's played that for the past 10, almost 15 years. I'm going to bring it. I'm going to get everyone to remind everyone why we loved him in the first place, because he was the go-to quintessential British villain in fucking action movies, and the fact he's never been in a Bond film still bewilders me now. So Gary Oldman's my first.
Great
pick.
shout, yeah.
Coming off that, here's an actor who, when I first saw him on the screen for the first time, I'm like, how the hell is he not a James Bond villain? And that is Lambert Wilson from The Matrix Reloaded and Revelations. Shamira Vingin.
Oh,
That
okay.
guy,
Yeah.
his whole shtick was Bond villain. I'm like, dude, like, how's this guy not in Bond? You know? Other than that, Adam Driver is definitely an actor who I love seeing on screen every time.
Totally.
I think he'd make a fantastic villain. And then we got some wild cards. Henry Golding,
Yeah.
for sure.
Yeah, if I didn't have him as Bond, definitely up for a villain.
Yeah, Henry Golding. Here's a random one. Peter Dinklage.
Oh, yeah, for sure.
Size matters not, man. I'm
Is he
pretty
on
sure
top, or is he just a main villain?
No, he's the big bad, man. He just has taller henchmen. It's the joke, but and you could get all the Bond quips and the one-liners out of the night. But
Is it the man with the golden gun where?
Knick-knack?
Yeah.
Yeah.
Is it really bad? I just imagine a massive chair and a huge cat stroking Peter Dinklage.
Brilliant.
So yeah, another person I'd really like to see as a villain, who I haven't really seen as a villain in recent years, Antonio Banderas. Mainly because he's been, he's very underused in big movies these days. I think that'd be a cool comeback. And then for a female Bond villain, Nicole Kidman.
Yeah, that's a good shout. I like that.
I mean, going on what Sasha said, if you had Antonio Banderas, that might be a chance to bring in Salma Hayek and actually have the first Bond villain
couple.
Yeah. Real
I'm loving it.
That would be good.
Neil's having a moment.
Yeah. I'll tell you, you know what? If I was making that film, Bond might lose.
Well, it'll be interesting to see because Antonio Banderas, he was the villain in Hitman's Wife's Bodyguard.
Yeah.
And he was very cheesy in that. Very, very cheesy. But he's also in Uncharted, which I presume he's going to be a villain. And he's also in Indiana Jones 5. And I don't know if he's playing a villain in that as well. So,
yeah, but imagine the Antonio Banderas from The Skin I Live.
Oh, yeah. No, I get that. Yeah, no, absolutely. Yeah, I don't want the cheese fest that he was in Hitman's Wife Bodyguard. But on that, if you took it in a serious direction, I could definitely see that. Yeah.
That film was so bad, I forgot all about it. I forgot all about
I say go back to Assassin's era.
Okay.
The last name I had on my list was Ewan McGregor.
Yeah, I like that.
He rarely does villains, but just a chance to go nuts and go crazy. I mean, Birds of Prey, that was a completely different type of villain, so ignore that, please. But he's always been good once he's been given great material. So, I mean, like, he's never really been Bond for me, but Bond villain for sure.
Yeah.
You know one person I thought of while you were speaking, Sash? Liam Neeson.
Did I not say Liam Neeson, or did I scrub him off?
No, you didn't
Scrubbed him
say him.
off.
Oh shit! Well, he was on the list, but I was toying with it because it's kind of like, are we Neesoned out?
But I mean, even if we say we're Neesoned out, I mean, like, when was the last time you saw him in a film and he, for 100% he got killed?
Yeah.
I mean, we know possibly got killed in the grave, right?
To be fair, pre-Taken, that's all Liam Neeson did. It was get killed.
Yeah,
That's what I mean. It was like recently he's always making it to the end. Like he survived all the Taken.
Well, yeah, because he's an action hero now. So.
Some other ones that I scrubbed off because again I wanted to keep it to 3. Bill Nighy was one for a villain. I also had Cillian Murphy as a villain. I saw him more as a villain. Toby Jones I consider as a villain as well. I know some people mention about Q, but I could definitely see that happening. But yeah, we could go on and on with villains like Peter Capaldi and all sorts. I was thinking like some like proper English or Scottish actors as well. So I was thinking like even Rupert Everett or Sam Neill. To get them in like Bond villains. One person I tried to get in and I couldn't quite factor them in, but I think they're a fantastic actor, is Lenny James. And I just didn't know whether I could get him as a Bond villain because I think he's a fantastic actor. But Lenny James, I would want to get in somewhere. I don't know if he's just maybe be another MI6 operative that assists and create a new character for him. But yeah, I'd want to get him into a British production.
You know what? If Felix Leiter didn't have to be American, it'd be him.
Yeah, that's exactly my thought. But I didn't want to cast necessarily British.
Oh, if he can do an American accent.
He can, and he's done it. But I want him to be British. I want him to have his British accent.
Okay.
Okay, so did you guys cast any other characters that I'm not familiar with? Any henchmen or iconic villains or anybody else?
Henchman 1.
Henchman number 1, yeah.
Thinking about, like, I didn't, but thinking about it, like, if you don't have, somebody like, I don't know, like, they missed the trick not having, when they had Dave Bautista in one of the recent Bond films, they missed the trick. He should have been Jaws.
Yeah.
Right? I'm like, you can't throw Jason Momoa a bone and say, hey, bro, you like, just go ham, just have fun. Be Craven the Hunter, but hunting James Bond. Just whatever, right? Yeah. I mean, a Bond villain can be not the main villain, but like the henchman can be almost on par with like a Bond girl.
Yeah. I mean, I'd definitely have someone who could play a henchman and take it through a few films. Somebody like Frank Grillo. I think.
Oh yeah,
he could be a really strong number 2.
He could be Felix.
Yeah, he could. Yeah, but I think he could play a really good number 2 to a villain over a number of movies.
Yeah,
like going out and doing certain things, almost getting Bond, but not quite. But them never really interacting, having much fight time until a few movies in. So.
If I was directing James Bond, I'd put Sam Hyman in there just to kill him off in 5 seconds. In the worst and most horriblest way, because he keeps killing people in my films, so he needs some moments.
Okay. Any final...
And then have someone film the whole thing behind the scenes, because I guarantee you that day of filming will be James.
All right. Any final thoughts on James Bond, the reboot? Anything else you guys want to mention?
I think we've got a great cast there for a friend, for our reboot.
For a number of movies, yeah.
Great villains there that could play lots of different characters, from over the years. So,
we'll put this out to the internet. We'll share it around. Hopefully, some people will listen, take up our ideas, and start signing these people up and start putting together this this reboot sooner rather than later. But thank you.
Yeah, that stop motion cat idea in space. Do it.
You know what? I can't lie, right?
That's going to be fast 10.
Top-tier shit right there.
Yeah.
That'll be fast 10.
I can't lie, right? There was one person who I thought of for Felix, but I was just like, hell no. This person can't. This person would be great, but they can't do it. at the same time. They'd be either the best thing in it or the worst thing in it.
You're really trying to
Donald
get
Glover.
Cast, aren't you? Go on.
He doesn't say like Kevin Hart, isn't he?
No, I said Donald Glover.
Or Donald Glover.
Yeah.
Ooh.
I actually had him down. For Felix.
Yeah.
I think that could be awesome.
No, that would be amazing, actually.
But I actually thought I had him down
That-
for Felix, but then I considered him more as a Bond villain. And I actually wanted to have like a bigger role that way.
He could do both, or Jonathan Majors.
Yeah. All right, cool.
Yeah.
All right, well, thank you very much for joining me today, gentlemen. It's an absolute pleasure. I really enjoyed that. That was really, really good. If people want to debate and catch you guys on social media, or if you've got anything to promote, whether it's a company you work for or whatever you might be doing, you need to get it out there into the world. Where can people find you, and what do you want to talk about? Greg, we'll start with you.
You can find me on I think Instagram and Twitter. I'm Board Gamers Greg, and I haven't really got anything to promote at the moment, so
cool.
Everyone else go crazy.
Neil?
Well, you can find me on the Neil Coppin on Instagram, or if you want to see exactly like how much redecorating I'm doing on my home, you can follow me on Savvy Chic and the Geek on Instagram, which is me and my partner's account of us demolishing and rebuilding a house.
The epic journey. Lee, what about yourself?
You can find me on Twitter at Journey81.
Cool. And Sacha?
Who's on mute?
You can find me on SashaMan3 on Twitter, and if you like retro games, sign up to Antstream Arcade, where you can find lots of old arcade classics and stuff. www.antstream.com.
Or download the app, which I did to my phone, my Android. Great app. I've been playing some retro games, and Sasha's been working there for a long time, and it was just one of the things I never got down to. I did it a couple of months ago. Very addictive, which is one of the reasons I probably shouldn't have downloaded it, because it eats away hours, and I don't even realise. So it's taking away time from TikTok, and that's something. So, well, thank you very much for joining us. Whether you've watched on YouTube, so you can catch all our podcasts on YouTube. Please make sure you do subscribe to our channel, hit the likes. We really appreciate that, and definitely share it to anybody who know film fans. But if you're listening on the podcast, you can find this podcast on any major podcast platform. We are on Apple Podcasts, Google Podcasts, Spotify, Amazon Music, Audible, and Good Pods. Good Pods is a great app for podcasts, especially independent podcasts, and we are number one for TV and film on Good Pods for all podcasts. So thank you very much to all our listeners and everybody for that. We really, really appreciate the support. And that's it. So until next time. Oh, actually, catch me on Twitter at Kenan Talks Film. I need to say that. Started getting some love from some people with ticks on Twitter, so I am enjoying the recognition. But yeah, that's it. Thank you very much for listening. Much appreciate your support as always. And until next time, peace out.
Peace.